Thank you for joining us. Today is September 11, 2019. We are in week 2 of the NFL season as well as week 3 of your college football season. A lot to go over, a lot to discuss. We have a great show ahead, so definitely happy to have you aboard. First topics we'd like to discuss would be NCAA football. Definitely had more insights on that last week, gave you more picks, had more results, and just more games, of course, to discuss and go over. In ParlayPeople world, if you were following the Instagram, which is ParlayPeoples, or subscribing to the podcast last week, the college football bets went 21-7. Those were a cumulative of what we posted online as well as what we put on the show, including some halftime bets that hopefully you jumped on where we went 3 out of 1. But we'll get into the stats of all that later. Biggest stuff, of course, of the week. Biggest shock, I guess you could say, as well as what made me even look like a genius sometimes. Of course, we get some right, and sometimes we look really smart. I, of course, follow lots of trends, lots of different things that you look into when you're factoring sports betting. Of course, we can go into that a little bit later in the show as well. Like I said, a lot to go over. The craziest upset we saw was picked here as well, predicted here. Colorado plus 4.5 at home. Game was also picked by Game of the Week for most, not just sports handicappers, but just even people on ESPN and Fox News or whoever you watch for your sports coverage. But the Nebraska Cornhuskers came out strong. Colorado looked good, just couldn't put up anything. Defense was still looking stellar. Trailed 17-0 at halftime. Went into it, scored 24 points in the second half, 24 in the fourth quarter. Both teams combined for 38 points in that quarter as well. A lot of fireworks and action, which led to an overtime, with Colorado ultimately squeaking it out 34-31. It was a great money line bet. Definitely won a good amount of money on that. I hope you jumped on it, or at least took the 4 points if you weren't confident in the money line advice. Big letdowns. Of course, this was just for all college football, not what I suggested. But of course, we definitely like to go over our expert picks and what we do, even if they're good or bad. But the biggest letdowns in college football was Michigan needing overtime to beat Army. Army put up a great defense. They've done it the last 2 weeks. The week before, holding a mediocre Rice to 7 points. But to hold Michigan to what they did and minimize them to need overtime, and in my opinion, they should have lost the game. I'm a Michigan fan. It was very disgraceful win. Not one you want to hang your hat on, but it is what it is. We got the W, but still a big letdown. Michigan offense still looks like shit. Gaddis is their offensive coordinator. A lot of hype about him. I'm not sold. Harbaugh, not sold. I like Harbaugh, of course. I think he's a great leader, but I don't know what the hell's going on with the offense. I hope McCaffrey gets in there. He's the backup quarterback. If you're familiar with the name, of course, his brother's Christian, starting running back for the Carolina Panthers, as well as his dad, who was a 2-time Super Bowl champion with San Francisco, as well as also the Denver Broncos. So, lot to debate on in Michigan. I hope that it's a good week to have, a bye week for them. They don't play this week, so hopefully they can get their shit together because Wisconsin's coming next week, and they're not going to be easy. Tennessee losing again at home. The coach even called his team the Titanic. Pretty sad times over there. But sometimes, last time I checked, Tennessee hasn't really been a football powerhouse. They've invested tons of money into the program. The school is very profitable, even with a shitty football program. But things haven't been, right since Peyton Manning was there, and that's over 20 years ago. BYU came in, smacked him in the mouth, won in the last seconds of the game. Very exciting game. I don't know if you followed that, but kudos to BYU. Another letdown was also a letdown in the sports betting from what we advised. It was the Washington losing at home with a 14-point favorite to Cal. Now, for those of you that are in the East Coast and don't stay up to watch the West Coast games, this game started at 7:30 Pacific time, 10:30 Eastern. Was delayed 3 hours. The game shouldn't even have been gone on. It was thunder, lightning, the whole nine, and unfortunately, after a 3-hour delay, they wheeled the kids out there, made them go. Real big letdown game. I don't know if the delay really played, which of course, I do know that's the factor, but I don't want to make excuses. But really, a just shitty game, shitty results, and disappointing on both ends because the over wasn't hit as well as the spread definitely wasn't close to being hit because Washington lost, and really ruined their season and also put another bad look on the Pac-12, being that that conference hasn't represented really anything or been a champion in many years, and their best bet probably this year is now Utah, which I think is a very strong team. We'll go over later, but Washington is not not who we thought they were. Another letdown was Kansas losing 12-7 to Coastal Carolina. I guess sometimes less isn't more. New coach Les Miles coming in trying to revive a program that really shouldn't even be probably playing football in the Big 12. Basketball, bar none, one of the top 10 programs, top 5 programs, you name it, in the last 20 years. But to lose to Coastal Carolina, who's only in their third year of FBS at home, is pretty disgraceful. I hope Les gets it together. I love Les Miles. I wish he was actually Michigan's coach before Harbaugh came in. But I think Les will get the job done. A pretty big letdown for Kansas fans and just the Big 12 in general to have that loss against them. New coaches poll came out. The AP I don't really follow too much, don't really like. I think the coaches poll is the best insight poll. I'll read that off to you if you haven't seen it, caught that this week. We have in order Clemson 1, followed by Bama 2, Georgia 3, LSU at 4, Oklahoma 5, Ohio State at 6, Notre Dame at 7, Florida moving up to 8, Auburn 9, and Michigan falling all the way down to number 10 because of that terrible win at home after being 22-point favorites. My top 10, take it or leave it. Like I said, I think my opinion is just as valuable, and I think our insight is very good. So let's go with my top 10. Not too much changes, but Clemson, number 1, Bama 2, LSU, number 3, over Georgia in the coaches poll, Oklahoma, number 4, Georgia 5, Ohio State 6, Notre Dame 7, Auburn 8, Michigan 9, and Utah 10. I'm not sold on Florida. Florida's not my top 10. They needed a lot of breaks to squeeze by and beat Miami to start off the season. They aren't that great of a team, I don't feel like, and SEC will definitely catch up to them. We'll see the real Florida team, I think, soon. So right now, I think Utah, who will be relevant throughout the year, they have a favorable schedule and started off the year strong. Have a great defense with guys that I think 4 or 5 dudes that are going to be starting in Sunday next year. So definitely look out for that team. When it comes to results from ParlayPeople and what we discussed last week, we had a good, strong week 2 with 18-6 results. In total, from week 1, college football bets where I went 20-8, bringing my total to 38-14, which is a little over 73% against the spread. Definitely great numbers. I'm very happy with these numbers. Want these numbers to continue. It's always good to have good weeks in a row. Going to try and keep the momentum, of course, rolling. Did a lot of research, had the same process, same mentality that we had last 2 weeks, and looking to get the job done. Of course, I know there's a lot of people out there giving out results, giving out advice, not even coming close to 60%, charging. Don't buy into the scams, the crap. Those people suck. They just have good marketing, and just watch out for those guys wanting to take your money for shit picks. Moving on, it's still with the college football world. We had the best bets to discuss what we just talked about last week, the advice we gave. As mentioned, we stay true to our picks. We like to get these picks out early, get them out when the line is where it's at, and you hopefully jump on it before movement happens. But hopefully maybe sometimes the line always could move in a more favorable way, depending on how you're laying it down. With the best bets we had, was mentioned Colorado plus 4.5. We took it, said bet the money line. Don't need to discuss that one. Ohio State minus 16. That was one of our top bets as well. They covered by 26. Winning 42-0. Great game for the Buckeyes, and definitely always love betting Ohio State. I'm not going to bet them every week, but you will see certain teams pop up usually, 60-70% of the time because I'm very familiar with these teams. I have a good gauge with a lot of these teams. The next game up was UCF minus 10. UCF covered by 34 points, beating Florida Atlantic 48-14. This game was out of hand from the get-go. The spread was covered before halftime for both the Ohio State and the UCF game. So really it came out, kicked ass, got the job done. Another one that wasn't the sexiest pick, I hope you jumped on it though, because I was very confident in this pick, was Tulsa minus 6. The odds makers had this one pretty wrong. This was on the road. Maybe that's why it was so low at 6. But they covered by 12 points, beating San Jose State 34-16. It was close in the first half, but we did cover the first half easily as well with the minus 3.5. Banked it again in the second half. Great results from Tulsa. So thank you again for Tulsa to step up. The other one was Louisiana Lafayette versus Liberty. The under was 66 points. I bet Liberty 2 weeks in a row now with the under, hitting both times. The under covered by 17 points, being that the score ended up being only 35-14. Liberty is not a offense you want to bank on. They have a great wide receiver. Guy's going to probably be in the NFL, Gandy Jones, but do not be banking on Liberty to light up the scoreboard, I believe, in this season. Biggest letdowns, games that we advised that did not make us look too bright, but at the same time, definitely love to go over those and not be ashamed of them and address those. We live by what we go with. And Washington minus 14, we discussed that earlier. Don't really need to beat a dead horse, but again, 3-hour delay, bad weather, big letdown. I wish they would have rescheduled that game. The game was should never been played and went into I think 2 o'clock in the morning or 1:30 in the morning. It actually finished. Michigan minus 22, discussed that as well. It was a ParlayPeople pick. Spread got nowhere near what we needed. And the last one that was a big letdown, still felt I had a good gauge on the game, was Ohio State versus Cincinnati over 54. Cincinnati came out with playing like dog shit on offense. They gave up the points we expected with 42. If they could have just put up 13 points, 42-13, we would have covered the spread easily on the 16 as well as, banked on the over. So, big letdown, mainly Cincinnati killing us on that one if you rode with me on that bet. In total, the breakdown of how the results worked out, my halftime bets, these were spreads. We went 3-1. Over-unders, 6-4. Over-unders has been doing good. Not hitting as much as we want, of course. Still 60%, but expecting better on those, we hope, moving forward. But the unders, I'm liking a lot. My overs just aren't going over. I should have been betting, I guess, all unders. My spreads, these are just spreads, no over-unders with the full game, 11-3. Great results on that. I hope you guys jumped on those. If you're not a big over-under guy, then definitely I'm, helping you out that much more. But in general, great results. Very proud of what we've done. A lot of people, of course, always ask, what are your trends? How do you study games? What is it that, makes you pick certain teams? There's a lot of factors that go into it. I do a lot of research in the beginning of the year. The Excel spreadsheet that I accrue each year and make on my own time is something that is stats ranging from their record against the spread, the record on the road, the record at home, how many returning starters, is the quarterback coming back, is he a returning starter, and just lots of different things. Coaching is, of course, very crucial. You got to know their philosophy. You got to know what kind of offense it is. If you're betting on over-unders, you can't be riding a team that you think is going to be passing all day, where the clock can be stopped, and yet they're running the ball 65% of the time. So know your teams, know their trends, know the coaching philosophy, and that's how really a lot of these things are presented when I do my research and I'm going through. I'm looking at those main factors. A lot of time also weather can be in play, of course, with the hurricane that just went through. Checking out the weather reports, still with the bets I have, I'm feeling confident. But those are things that you always got to factor in. A lot of times, NFL is not that much research. College, of course, is very in depth, and this goes for even college basketball, which I'll be giving advice on in a couple months when that season begins. But these are the main things, of course, with no weather in college basketball, but with football, a lot more factors, a lot more kids playing, a lot more just people and things to factor in. But can't give away all my secrets, but kind of what we go with and what my philosophy is, and I've definitely been paying off these last several years. Me versus the experts. So in total for college football, documented from what we put on Instagram as well as what we have on the podcast. Subscribe if you haven't. Subscribe below, or follow us on our Instagram feed at ParlayPeoples. That's plural, ParlayPeoples. College football went 38-14 against the spread. That is including every type of bet, either being a halftime advice, a over/under, or a college football, just spread. Point-wise, who I follow and still respect, but people pay money each week to them. I don't take their advice or use their picks. I like to do mine and then just see what they do to go and compare. They do provide a lot of great information, though, to study the game. I just don't know if they're reading it right this year, or maybe need to change it up a little bit. But they're 36-39, and those are people paying for advice. I am giving you a free subscription and crushing it over 70%, and a lot of my competitors can't even hit over 50. If you use the app to score as well, not to call these people out, but they're definitely not bringing you much results. Their results are under 30% against the spread. I do follow Vegas Dave. I wouldn't pay for those picks. Guys are probably better at baseball more than football. But definitely I would say that I would go toe-to-toe against Vegas Dave as well on any given Sunday or Saturday or whatever Thursday night what brings when it comes to football or any college sport. So don't give the guys claiming to give you all the great picks, all $50,000 bankroll. We hear all these schmucks online. If you listen to the local radio stations around here, 97.3, being that we're in San Diego, or even some of the other AM 600 or 760 down here. But these guys are full of shit. They definitely want your money, and there's no guarantee on anything. But more power to them. Somehow they keep getting people to subscribe. Let's move on to the NFL. Straight up picks on what we advise here. Went 9-5-1 with the terrible tie. Arizona and Detroit. Luckily, it was a great comeback. Happy for the kid. New quarterback coming out. At least he didn't get a loss, but they technically are still undefeated. Both the Lions and the Arizona Cardinals, but still terrible. The sports bets we gave on the NFL went 3-1. Kansas City took care of business. The Rams at Carolina took care of business, covering the spread. And then we also have the Patriots kicking Pittsburgh's ass. The big letdown and the one loss was the Atlanta Falcons forgetting to show up. Their plane did not arrive, I guess, in Minnesota. But they did not look appealing in any way, shape, or form. So we lost on the plus 4.5, I believe, that we were taking on that one. Monday night brought us great excitement. First game, amazing, down to the wire. Watson coming through, getting the job done. They thought, already cash and celebrating on the side. And voila, Lutz makes a 57-yard field goal. Very exciting game. The other game of the night, if you're a Raiders fan, of course, you definitely enjoyed it. If you're a Broncos fan, you're still wondering, where the hell your team's been the last couple of years. Big letdown since Peyton left you guys. But at the same time, still a very close game, even though some of the experts wouldn't say it was. But Denver had a chance. Flacco didn't do terrible, adjusting to the new scheme. Nobody wants to play on a damn dirt field. Thank God that they're going to be now in Vegas soon, so they're not going to have to play on dirt fields anymore. The first couple months of the season, or first month, depending on the Oakland Athletics. move on in the playoffs, which looks like they might, but still, very shitty game when it comes to, there's, I should say, shitty field when you got to play on there. Big letdowns. Biggest one I would have to say when it comes to teams not rising to the occasion or living up to that hype would be your Cleveland Browns. Everybody was on the bandwagon, not me, but I still feel that they will have a good season. I don't have them going over the Vegas win totals, nor do I have them winning the Super Bowl, which a lot of people put the most cash on the Browns winning the Super Bowl. Good luck to that. But a great stat that I saw and had to share was the Browns have started the season openers in the last 20 years going 1-18-1. So 1 win in 20 years to start your season. Definitely the Browns off to the Browns start. Another big surprise in that game was Baker Mayfield throwing 3 picks. Your MVP candidates. The guy was the stud last year. Didn't look like Baker. I know he'll probably, dust that off, I believe. Move forward. Kid's strong. He's good mentality. But still a big surprise and big letdown for fantasy owners as well as the Cleveland Browns fans. Also, another letdown is the NFL allowing games to still be tied. When are you going to change your overtime rules? It just seems either because of the Vegas odds and them not wanting the game to go over too much scoring or fantasy or I don't know what the hell, but there is no philosophy in making the game be a tie. Still something that I think ruins the game and needs to be changed, but here we are still with it. There's always at least one every year, I think, probably for the last 5-6 years, maybe even more, but it should never be the case. Great surprises. I'm not a fan of either of these teams, but the Buffalo Bills coming back from 16 down in the fourth quarter to dethrone Sam Darnold and the Le'Veon Bell offense. It was, if you watch the game, I'm on Red Zone, glued to the TV, as well as some other laptops and games going on, but it seemed like the Jets were already celebrating, not to throw Le'Veon, but they seemed like they were already cashing that in. Buffalo comes back, great defense, great plays, gets the job done, 17-16. Lamar Jackson, another great story, goes off on the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins are, if there was AAA or the D-League or JV, you would say the Miami Dolphins are definitely on that level. They did not show up. They could care less. They are shooting for either the Tua train or whoever they're expecting to draft with the number 1 overall pick next year. Do not expect any big things from Dolphins, but great thing for Lamar Jackson. Maybe shut some critics up, but at the same time, we'll see how that plays out. I love the comment of him saying, though, pretty good for a running back, being, of course, that he's a quarterback. The kid had an arm at Louisville, threw tons of touchdowns. I think had a couple games of 6 or 7 touchdown passes. So not a surprise, but, the kid last year ran a lot, didn't really show off the arm. Maybe we'll see a new Baltimore offense. If he can do that every week, be a Patty Mahomes type of quarterback as well as run the way he can, watch the hell out. Another great story, running back and high draft pick Josh Jacobs of the Oakland Raiders became the first player since the one and only LaDainian Tomlinson to have over 100 scrimmage yards as well as 2+ touchdowns in their NFL debut. That was done in 2001. I was actually at that game when my dad, the diehard season Chargers fan, was still had those season tickets and the Bolts were in town. But great story. I actually have Jacobs in one of my fantasy teams. Way to go. Happy it paid off. Biggest shockers. Where do we begin? AB. Wow. If this segment was longer, I would definitely have more to talk about. But AB gets what he wants, gets out, goes to the franchise that everybody wishes they could play for. Either you love him or you hate him. We'll see if this changes and maybe he can become a good teammates or whatever they're claiming he's not. I can't speak on the guy's behalf. I'm just entertained by the show. Shit show every day, especially now with news coming out of AB having sexual assault charges against him from one of his former trainers. Don't want to get into details, but very Harvey Weinstein-like activity from Antonio Brown. Of course, just allegedly. I don't want to say that this is true. I'm not breaking any news or saying that what I am the reporting is true or false. But what a character! What an off season. Definitely interesting times over there now in New England, but in AB land. Another big shocker was I picked, of course, the Steelers to lose, not by more than 7, with Patriots minus 6.5 in the podcast last week. But to get their asses kicked the way that they did, I know it was a road game, but wow, 3 points, electing to kick field goals in the red zone when you're down 20 just doesn't seem like they're really confident in the offense. I don't know if they make some moves. Connor looked like shit. Juju had a good game, but he's now banged up. So, I bet AB's laughing from afar, of course, being that now he serves them their first loss of the season, even though he wasn't a part of it. Another big shocker was Atlanta really doing nothing with that offense. Makes Julio Jones the highest paid player. Guy ends up with only 3 catches, less than 30 yards. Did get a touchdown for those fantasy owners, including myself, that still were disappointed and most likely got a loss because of that result. But I hope Atlanta gets their shit together. I do have Matt Ryan and Ridley, I know. So interesting times in Atlanta. We'll see what they do on the big stage Sunday night versus the Philadelphia Eagles, who gave up a lot of points to Case Keenum, who's, let's not say is going to be lighting it up every week, but we'll see if they can bounce back in Atlanta Sunday night. Another big shocker was my boy Dak dropping dimes and touchdowns, looking to get paid, trying to get paid. Still don't pay the man. Don't pay that man. Or pay him, but not in the upper echelons of what he's expecting. I hope the $40 million was a pipe dream and a overquote, or misquote, I should say, that was incorrect, but we will see how that plays out. Jerry ain't stupid. Jerry will pay him what he deserves, but let's see what the kid can do and how we go to the playoffs. Sad, another shocker. This was also kind of could have been thrown a letdown, mainly for Jaguar fans. They saw their starting quarterback, the $84 million man, Nick Foles, Super Bowl champion, the savior, and soon to be probably pastor once he retires, injures clavicle and out probably 6 to 8 weeks. So not a way to start the season, and Jaguars better rely heavily on Leonard Fournette, or their season is going to look like it did last year. Continuing in the NFL, we have my picks for the week. These are just straight ups. We'll be following this each week to see how I do, see what we're at, because as mentioned, we call me out. We like to call what I do out positively or negatively and hold me accountable. Carolina over Tampa Bay, that is your Thursday night game. Carolina looks to bounce back. Both teams are 0-1. Tampa Bay, they didn't come out strong. We'll see if they go 0-2, not the way that they want to start the season, and definitely not what they expected. Dallas over Washington. These are your morning games on Sunday. Baltimore over Arizona at home. That game is at 46. Maybe look to bet the over. Looks pretty solid. If Baltimore can come out as well as Arizona can have that speed offense and duplicate what they did more in the second half of last week. Cincinnati is hosting San Fran. I will take San Francisco. The Chargers are at Detroit. I will take Detroit. Green Bay Packers at home over the Minnesota Vikings. Houston at home versus Jacksonville. We just mentioned how banged up they are. Houston looked great, came out strong, just let up in the last 34 seconds of the game. Couldn't put the defense on. And to that as well, what the hell were you doing playing prevent? You get a good kickoff. You guys are dropping men back, giving up 10 to 15 yards. This isn't college where the kid needs to line up at the 30. It's in the dome where he's kicking from the 40, 50-yard line. Anything's possible. The kid could have made it from 65 yards. So, you know, you got to learn your lesson right there. But it is what it is. Got to move on to. It's only 1 week. You have the Patriots visiting the Miami Dolphins. I definitely am picking the Patriots. The Giants, and I believe will get their first win versus the Buffalo Bills. Pittsburgh will squeak out a win, I believe, at home versus Seattle. The Tennessee Titans should have no issue if they come out and play like they did last week at home versus the Indianapolis Colts. Kansas City will put the fire out quickly of Oakland, put them back in reality. Chicago Bears, I think, beat Denver at Denver. The Rams are hosting the Saints. Would have been great to have that Sunday nights, but still America's game. They like to call it a 125 game, 4:25 Eastern time. Rams at home over the Saints. Then I am picking the Philadelphia Eagles to win at Atlanta for your Sunday night, followed by the Monday night game, which battle of two second-year quarterbacks, very high draft picks last year. You have Baker Mayfield versus Darnold. I'm picking the Browns to bounce back, get their shit together, and beat the Jets on Monday Night Football. Your other news to go over, these are more injuries and also just things to mention that we need to go over. We have the Glass Man. I swear this kid has been hurt 85% of his NFL career. Big letdown. Hunter Henry, tight end for the Chargers, out 4 to 6 weeks after fracturing his knee. Kid has torn it, I think twice now. Can't stay on the field. Chargers hopefully give Gates the call. Bring back Gates. Bring back Gates. Probably couldn't play 16 games. Maybe just put him in goal line or decoy, but it would be great to see good old Antonio back out there. I'm not a Chargers fan, but definitely root for Rivers and Gates on that team. Chargers also lose starting left tackle Russell Okung. He's been out already, but confirmed he'll be out another 6 weeks. Rivers, I hope you can run, boy, because you definitely need some help out of that left tackle position. Raiders lose first round pick, safety John Abrams. Abrams, if you didn't know, was the 27th pick out of Mississippi State. Solid kid. Was a star kind of on the show Hard Knocks if you followed it. Very sad to see this lose his season right off the bat. Kid was going to be pretty good for that team. Hopefully bounces back quickly and has a good sophomore year. The next up is Adrian Peterson will get the start. AP definitely will see the workload. He missed last week and in that inactive scratch. Redskins, another dumpster fire, I think. Choking, which started off as a great first half, holding the Eagles in check, scoring a lot of points, and just not showing up in the second half. Now they're going to rely on AP. Good luck, but we'll see how that plays out. Go Cowboys. Patriots, AB potentially heading to the commissioner's list just came in. We'll see if that plays out. I doubt it, but for how much negativity and attention and how Goodell has no policy that he can really go by. It's just player by player, unfortunately, for how dysfunctional that system is. It wouldn't surprise me if AB maybe ends up on that list. Now, AB and his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, came out and said, of course, this is just a money grab. But you never know in this day and age. Lately in America, you're kind of been, you're more guilty before proven innocent instead of the other way around like it should be. KC Hill, wide receiver, out 4 to 6 weeks. Definitely need to adjust your fantasy roster. I believe Tyreek was probably a top 5 to top 10 in most every single fantasy draft when it comes to wide receivers. So hurting a lot of teams out 4 to 6 weeks, shoulder injury. The Eagles lose their starting defensive tackle, Malik Jackson, the $30 million man. Got a 3-year deal, $30 million. Very high amount for a defensive tackle. Expected big things He is done for the year. Sorry to see him out, but as a Cowboy fan, definitely good to see Zeke not have to deal with him. But to feel bad for the guy, definitely want to see somebody go down. But this game of football, you're seeing people go down left and right every week. That concludes our football segments. Can go on, but don't want to bore you with stories you might already be seeing. Want to get to the bread and butter, the stuff that puts money in our pocket, or maybe even helps your fantasy, or just makes your weekend that much more exciting. My college football bets for the week, and I will be posting these on ParlayPeople, our Instagram account. But of course, subscribe as well so you can get our picks each week. Currently over 70% for 2 weeks in a row. Looking to make that continue and make your weekends a little bit more profitable. Alabama minus 25 at South Carolina. I think that Alabama gets the job done. South Carolina has not been impressive. They were beat up by North Carolina, who most people pick not to have the start that they have had. Definitely Mac Brown is a great coach. Don't want to take anything away from him. But South Carolina is not going to be lighting it up on Alabama. Alabama did start off last week a little slow, even though it was New Mexico State in the previous week against Duke. But look to Alabama to come out, get the job done, cover the 25. Maybe it's 25.5, depending on where you're betting. But either way, they will cover 25 or 26 points if it is that half a point. Next up is the Ohio State minus 15.5 at Indiana. This game has sometimes been close. Indiana is a good team at home, not one that you expect to dethrone Ohio State. Maybe you can make it interesting in the first half, keep it close. Look to Ohio State to pull this away in the third quarter and keep it away from them and covering that 15.5 points. Next up is one that puzzles me. I don't know if there's something going on or some inside information that I'm just not available to that Vegas is not sharing. But NC State minus 6.5 at West Virginia. West Virginia has just been terrible since their coach left them, and has been really a disappointing display of football, being that they were a very top tier program for the last 10 years, not competing in national championships, but still getting great bowls and producing talent in the NFL. But to see the score at 6.5 with the way that West Virginia's played, maybe there's something I'm not reading, but I do like NC State minus 6.5. It's kind of my same liking of Tulsa last week, minus 6.5 at San Jose State. West Virginia is not going to be impressing anyone this year. It's a real rebuilding year this year, and look for NC State to get the job done by double digits. Penn State minus 17 versus Pitt. They have manhandled Pitt for years. This is an in-state rivalry, of course. There is some bad blood. They're going to play tough. People know each other, date each other, whatever it is, know their sisters, brothers, whoever, you never know. But at the same time, Penn State is going to kick some ass at home. They started off last week slow for us. If you wrote that with me, you were probably saying, oh, what are we going to do? Oh my gosh, this looks terrible. But that's why there's two footballs, halves. Definitely got to ride it out and stay confident. Penn State gets the job done, minus 17. Next up, UCF, and this spread is rising, so jump on fast. Started at 6.5, went to 7, now 7.5. Could be at 8, depending on what your bookie wants or what time you get at Caliente or get online. UCF minus 7.5 versus Stanford. Stanford's quarterback, Costello, is coming back, but I don't think it's going to be enough. UCF is a dominating team, great program, great stories, great kids, and great coaching. So UCF will get the job done. Stanford has to travel. They got their asses kicked against a USC team that some would say is pretty great on paper, but we'll see what they do moving forward. I like UCF. Next game up, Oklahoma State minus 14 versus Tulsa. The game is at Tulsa. I believe that these are two teams that we both bet. Week 1, Oklahoma State. Week 2, Tulsa. Have to still pick now one or the other. I'm riding Oklahoma State. With Oklahoma State, they score a ton of points. I don't think Tulsa's going to be able to hang. They should be able to put some points. With also, I think, T. Boone Pickens. I don't know if you know who that is. He is the biggest booster, as well as the stadium is named after him. Builds $1 million facilities for that program, donates millions of dollars. They have a little bit added more motivation. Get one done for T. Boone. Minus 14. Tulsa, good luck, but you're going to get beat by a lot of points. Next game up, which is also the same game we just mentioned, Oklahoma State versus at Tulsa, over 65. Hopefully Tulsa can just get some points. I'm looking for Oklahoma State to surpass over 40 points. So Tulsa, let's get it done and get at least 20-something for us as well. Let's go over. I had that game probably clips in 69 to 70 points, so getting the job done at over 65. Next game up is Oklahoma minus 22.5 at UCLA. UCLA is terrible. Chip Kelly in his second year, he probably should just sit a year out and take the Oregon job once Oregon probably fires their coach eventually, and go back to his roots. But look for Oklahoma to come out, kick ass, Jalen Hurts, light up the scoreboard. UCLA does have a good defense. They do have 9 returning starters on offense, 10 returning starters on defense. But still, to lose to SDSU at home last week, to only muster 14 points, Oklahoma will not be denied offense. They will score points. Now, the question is, does their defense come through and get the job done? But 22.5, scoring 23, more than UCLA, I don't think is going to be a question. Get the job done. Oklahoma Sooners crush them. Next game, Northwestern versus UNLV, under 54.5. UNLV is no gem on the offensive side. Northwestern is a great defensive team, great coaching philosophy. Northwestern is also missing their quarterback for the year. Too bad for him. The backup is still kind of proven. They had a bye week last week, so you don't get to see what they've done or what they're going to bring. I think Northwestern comes out, smacks them around, plays some Big Ten football, running the ball on their ass, playing some defense, smashing them in the mouth. I don't really see Northwestern scoring more than 30 points, over 35 points, and I definitely don't see UNLV eclipsing over 20 points. So the 55 looks under 55 or 54.5, depending on where you get it, looks still favorable to the under, not the over. Next up, Oklahoma at UCLA, under 73.5. This is one that maybe a lot of you look sexy on paper. Oklahoma scoring 40, 50 points a game. Their defense has never been really stellar where they're shutting people out. UCLA, though, you're going to really need to bank on UCLA to score a lot of points in this game. It is at home at UCLA. Maybe they play tough. Maybe the refs have a little bit of love for UCLA. Sorry. Maybe you see that UCLA is, get some calls, but I do not see the game going over 74 points unless Oklahoma scores 65 or 60 of it. So look for that game to go under. Next up, Washington State, minus 8.5 at Houston. This is a game on Friday night. The game is rising. It was started at 7. I posted it yesterday. I liked it at the beginning, right when the line came out. I bet it early. Still, though, I like it at 8.5. Jump on it before it gets to 10, 9, wherever it's at right now, or where it's rising to. But I like Washington State. Houston's going to bring it. They're going to score 2. Washington State, though, is really trying to prove a point. Look for them also to compete in the Pac-12 and maybe for a national championship if they run the table. So Washington State will get the job done. On the next game, we have Wake Forest minus 3 versus North Carolina. This is another Friday game. North Carolina's on a good run. Great stories. Mac Brown's dancing. He's having a good time. He's crying at press conferences. But all good things do come to an end. Look for Wake Forest to go 2-1, making North Carolina 2-1. The ACC, everybody battling for second place because we all know Clemson's going to run the table. But Wake Forest -3 at home, I think that's a good bet. Not going to probably win by double digits, but look for them to cover that 3. Next up is, we mentioned them earlier, took them twice, going to take them 3 times now. Liberty versus Buffalo, under 56 points. Buffalo is not a stellar offense. They got handled by Penn State last week, but they did hold Penn State to low scoring in the first half. They also held their first opponent to some low scoring in the first game of the year. So I think Buffalo's defense puts Liberty in check. This is a game that you need over 14 points a quarter to surpass the over. I don't see that happening. I could see some quarters of 14, some of 10, some of 9, 13. But ultimately, I think we stay under the 56, around the 52, 53 range mark. Going to be a nail biter, but I still think Buffalo and Liberty does go under. And I've rode it twice, 3 times. Let's see what we can do. Is keep it going, keep the train moving. I do like trends. I follow trends. I create, I like the trends that I create, and I ride them sometimes. And that's how you got to go with it sometimes. Next one up is SMU -17 versus Texas State. SMU kicked the shit out of North Texas last week. North Texas had a very good offense. They put them in check. SMU scored 49 points. Texas State is terrible. Nothing to brag about. Look for SMU to pull away, get the job done. Maybe it's around the 24-17 mark through the second, third, fourth quarter, but SMU does pull away, and I think they will surpass a lead of over 20 points and continue that throughout the game. Texas Tech -2 at Arizona. Texas Tech is new. They haven't really had any challenges yet. A lot of people might be worried about this, but if you've seen Arizona's record and you've seen what they've given up to the opponents they've given up points to and played, Texas Tech should come in there and score a lot of points. The over-under 77. A lot of points. I think Texas Tech, though, in a close game, squeaks it out. Arizona has a great coach, and a good quarterback. But Texas Tech gets the job done. Colorado -4 versus Arizona. This is another one that was at 3. I told people to jump on it yesterday. We posted it, and I think it could be a 4, 4.5 now. Colorado -4 versus Air Force. Take it, get it while get it before it goes up. Next up, we have Army -17 at Texas San Antonio. Army last 2 weeks been great defense. Texas San Antonio might be one of the worst rated offense in FBS. Army is going to be running the ball. Their defense is going to have to come through. Not going to be many possessions, but I still like them -17. For NFL, as mentioned last week, we do not give out tons of NFL picks. I like to give out the straight ups and maybe anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe if you're lucky, 7 NFL bets. This week we're going to roll with 4. Maybe I shoot some out on the Instagram, so follow us there. I will probably be giving out some more college football bets on the Instagram account because I still need some research to be done, as well as some halftime lines to finalize to see where we're going to put our money there. But for NFL, I like the Chargers -2.5 at Detroit. Detroit did not look too impressive. They have a lot of injuries as well. The Chargers, on the other hand, came out strong and ended terribly. They needed overtime to beat Indianapolis Colts. I still like the Chargers, though, -2.5 at Detroit. Next up, I like the Green Bay Packers -2.5 versus the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota came out strong. Green Bay had a great game on Thursday. Maybe a lot of people forgot about it just because it was a week ago. But at the same time, Green Bay's defense looked very improved compared to what they've been over the years. And Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. 2.5 at home seems very fair. It should be, I think, around more 4.5, 5 points. But take it, 2.5. I think we go with it. Next up, New England -19 versus the Miami Dolphins. Or at the Miami Dolphins. A lot of people might be afraid of this one. It started off at 16, 17 points. It's rising. I think New England kicks their ass. Miami, good luck. I mean, this game could get ugly in the 30s, 40s, just like it did last week when they played Baltimore. Next up, we have the Browns -2.5 at the Jets Monday night. Browns bounce back. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon. I still think they're a 9-7 team, 8-8, squeaking by as a wild card. But the Jets did not impress last week. Their offense looked like shit. Their defense was okay, but I think Browns have a bounce back week. Look for that to get the job done. To finish, these are what we will be watching for the week. This is what I advise you to watch. Some of these games were not mentioned, so definitely keep your eye on it. But of course, we will have our eye on every single game that we are betting on, Parlay People. But some of these games, as mentioned, are ones that we did not mention that you should still keep your eye on if you're a sports fan. Starting tomorrow, we have the Tampa Bay Bucks at home. They will be playing the Carolina Panthers. That's a good a rivalry match, in-conference match, divisional match, you name it. Look for that to be a good matchup for Thursday Night Football. Friday night, we have Wake Forest versus North Carolina. Parlay People pick. Washington at Houston. Parlay People pick. There's only 3 games that night. The other one, Boston College game, you do not want to watch or waste your time. But be my guest if that's what you choose. Saturday, we have Maryland versus Temple. I know, Maryland versus Temple. Interesting. No, this isn't a college basketball game. I'm advising this is football. The over-under is looking at 67. Maryland has scored over 140 points in their first 2 games. Look for this to be a lot of points, a lot of excitement. Definitely won't disappoint. I'm not touching the game personally, but this will probably be one of the games that I actually do watch that I don't have money on. 12:30, which will be 3:30 Pacific time. I'm sorry, Eastern time. UCF versus Stanford. The game of respect, the game of credit. What will UCF do? Will this leap them into the polls? Will this give them that signature win that could put them in the Final Four? Or does Stanford come in and ruin all their dreams? It's also another Parlay People pick. Watch UCF versus Stanford. Another one, 2 former national championships, 2 former powerhouses, 2 teams that produce Heisman Trophy winners. USC at BYU. USC cracked the top 25, finishing at 24. USC is -4.5. If they do indeed win this game or cover the spread, it won't be by much. Look for a tight game, but you never know. Maybe they come out like they did against Stanford and whoop some ass. I know a lot of people that I know personally will be watching that game and rooting for that game, but I personally will not be touching that game, but I will be watching it. Next up, Iowa versus Iowa State. Great in-state rivalry. Spreads 2.5, over under 44.5. If you want smash mouth football, if you want defensive struggles, and you definitely want to watch this game, being that it's only 44.5, the defense is going to be smacking them around. Iowa, I think, will pull away. Spread's only 2.5. Could be a Parlay People pick. Keep your eye on the Instagram and for my advice, because I am on the fence on Iowa, but just need to do a little bit more research and see some things. For the soccer fan, we have all coverage here. Starting early, 4 a.m. Real Madrid versus Levante. 4:30 a.m. Liverpool versus Newcastle. 6 a.m. my Juventus versus Fiorentina. And then we have 8:30 a.m. we have Mbappe PSG versus Strasbourg. And we have at 12 o'clock later in the day, for those that don't like to wake up too early, Barcelona versus Valencia. That would probably be the best matchup of the day when it comes to competitive teams going against each other in the soccer world. To finish, we have Sunday. We have Cowboys at Redskins. Great matchup, great history. Go Cowboys. Look for that to be, I think, a close game. Cowboys get the job done, as mentioned, but a great matchup. Packers versus Vikings. Seattle at Pittsburgh. Saints at Rams, which that was the Sunday night game, but so be it. And Philadelphia at Atlanta to have your Sunday night game. That is your weekend. That is the sports. That is my bets. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. We value your opinion. Shoot us an email, or send us a friend request. We definitely want you following us, and we appreciate your insight as well. Thanks again, and have a great, successful weekend.